The start to the season that they had and all of those late goals, was there a feeling of unsustainability about it all?
Yes, there's either one or two things happening, wasn't it? One, it's a mark of champions that you can keep going and score a goal late on, which everyone was trying to convince themselves was the case, or it's a team slightly getting away with it. And I was at quite a few of those games, and even that first game against Bournemouth, they were actually quite lucky to win that match. And there's a bit of alarm bells ringing then about that. And obviously they did fantastically well to then go and win so many games late on. But actually, in the last week, maybe that's been balanced out a little bit by the reality of the fact that this is a team in transition. You know, they've done a very bold summer. They've made a huge number of changes. It's clearly Arne Slot and Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes putting their mark on the team. This is no longer a Jurgen Klopp side. This is now Arne Slot, Michael Edwards, Richard Hughes saying this is the Liverpool going forward. Now, to do all of that in one summer was always going to be quite risky. Make so many changes. Although in saying that, the team that started yesterday, most of them were there last season. Only a couple of new players in Kirkes, and obviously the goalkeeper they bought anyway. But I think they've also tried to change the style of play, be more expansive. And that's going to make them a little more open as well. So Slot's trying to put his imprint on the team that are champions. And in itself, that's quite an interesting experiment to do that. I think it's always going to be a difficult period for them. I think in some ways they did better than we thought by winning those games at the start. I know it's a bit weird saying that, having spent so much money, but actually, you know, they look like a team in transition to me. And to do that in this situation is quite risky. And I think that there's risks have sort of come against them this last week. They've obviously been caught out. And going into the international period now, they've got to try and sort it all out. But I think it's a work in progress for Liverpool, and I think they are some way off being the team they want to be.
Jackie, Jason says work in progress. Jamie Redknapp actually described it as a mini crisis yesterday. It's quite bizarre to use the word crisis with a team that's second in the league. Yes, 1 out of 2 wins in the Champions League. But with the team in transition, are there any specific problems that you can see that have kind of developed over the games that they've played so far this season?
I think the reason it's being described as a crisis by Jamie Carragher, who would know because he watches probably every kick of Liverpool, is because of the size of the club and what they achieved last season. But I think last season, because the new manager came in, there weren't so many changes, were there, structurally in terms of the team. It was almost easier to get that kind of fluency, whereas now it's a case of spending £400 million or so, signing these huge players and a young player in Florian Wirtz. And people are thinking, oh, we'll just take this brilliant guy from Germany in Wirtz and we'll just slot him into this amazing Liverpool side and obviously things will be better. Oh, we got Isak. Obviously, we'll just score more goals. Ekitike, I think, looks fabulous, by the way, and he has slotted in. But then the manager's got far more issues to consider. You've got the off-pitch issues of players fitting into a new lifestyle, a new culture, a new place to live, all these things. The likes of Wirtz having to settle into a new team where he's not the main man, where he's got players like Gakpo, he's got Salah moving into the positions that he would traditionally own in Germany. You've got loads of different issues. And, of course, the fullback situation as well. Conor Bradley having to be taken off yesterday, being on a yellow card, really disrupted the flow. Kirkes, who somehow cost about £6 million more than Ryan Aït-Nouri, trying to work out how that happened. Perhaps they should have gone for Aït-Nouri instead, although Kirkes is a good player. Is he Liverpool standard? Is he up to the standard that Andy Robertson was at his best? There are all these different factors and question marks. And I think it's just a case of a huge club losing 3 in a row. 2 late ones are an absolute killer if you're a supporter of the club. And it is going to take time for these things to settle down. And last season, they took advantage of the fact that things weren't quite right at City, with Pep, with Phil Foden. And this time, all eyes are on Liverpool, and the expectations are huge now.
It seems bizarre to say, Julian, that given how much they spent, and we shouldn't forget how much they recouped as well in that transfer window. But are the answers to these problems that we're talking about with Liverpool at the moment within the squad, or are there other issues in that squad that they have to maybe rectify and go back into the market in January?
No, I don't think so. I think they've got a great squad overall. The only position really is a centre-back. They wanted Mark Guéhi to have another centre-back. They could not sign him. Yeah. And then Leone obviously got injured on his first game, which is very unlucky. So now you're left with Konate, Van Dijk and Joe Gomez, who was on the bench yesterday, could have replaced Ibrahima Konate in that second half. Slot chose Gravenberch to play there, which I find it a little bit surprising. To be fair, Gravenberch, great on the ball, probably better than Joe Gomez. So in your build-up phase, to have him there is good, but then he makes a massive mistakes on the Estevao goal that a defender, centre-back, probably like Joe Gomez would not have made. He would have been in line with Van Dijk. Cucurella would have been offside. Robertson also is at fault on that goal for not really checking where Estevao is. But Gravenberch in that position is strange, so centre-back is definitely a position they could do with.
They must deeply regret not signing Mark Guéhi. I mean, I think that deal was always there to be done the whole summer, and I find it fascinating they left it so late. It almost felt like they thought, well, we can do this. This will happen. We know Palace are desperate to sell because you're not going to sign a new contract. It will happen. And it didn't happen. And I think it's negligent of them not to have sorted out that position, because they went into the window wanting to sign Dean Howson, who then obviously went to Real Madrid. So they knew that centre-back was an issue for them, and Konaté is going into the final year of his contract. How can you have this kind of big summer of fees and transfer spending and not sort out that key position? Because they're so dependent now on Van Dijk staying fit. If he gets an injury, they're going to look really short in that position. They're going to start moving players around, like maybe asking Gravenberch to play as a centre-half. Then you've got Szoboszlai playing a right-back who's a midfielder sometime, and then you've got Gravenberch maybe playing as a centre-half. You're thinking, well, how have we managed to get into that situation where you've had this huge summer of an overhaul of the squad?
Is that what the problem is, Jackie? Because of the huge overhaul that Jason has mentioned there, it's impacted the players who are there already. Because we saw Mohamed Salah, who had an iconic season last season, and it just really hasn't worked for him so far this season. Is that down to Salah himself and his form, or the changes that have been made and where his position is in the team now?
Frankly, it's impossible for us to get inside Mo Salah's head, isn't it? Let's be honest about that, although it'd be a very interesting place to reside. But all those factors that the guys have mentioned, they all play a part, they all add up, don't they? And I think not having that solid platform at the back and question marks over the full-back situation and being short at centre-half are really, really big issues. And then when you add into the squad dynamic, the fact that they have so many new players bedding in, I think it's easy from the outside just to look at the big green bit in the centre of the stadium and just think everything's about that. But it's not. It's about the dynamic off the field as well. And these things can take time. It's a huge overhaul. But those basics and the lack of a solid defence at the moment and the depth in there is a big issue, and that issue is huge.
I do think Salah isn't playing well. I think he's not having a good season so far. But obviously we don't want to sort of say anything more than that about him, because obviously he'll go and score on a mad run of scoring now. And I think when he's not playing well, the problem with Salah, he doesn't track back. And if you look at yesterday's game, Cucurella, was up and down.
That was the plan for Chelsea, yeah.
Exactly. So they're exploiting that as a weakness. Salah does not track back because obviously he usually goes forward and scores goals. But if he's not scoring the goals, it becomes a problem for Liverpool. And I'm not saying that it's a huge problem, but it is an issue. And as Julian said, it's something that Chelsea exploited.
And had he put that effort away after that phenomenal little pirouette flick from Florian Wirtz, then things might have been different. But he hasn't been at his best, and Liverpool have been so phenomenal with him at his best.